Hey everybody, this is Zoe. She's a two-fingered or two-toed Linnea sloth, and she is so cute. If you've ever wanted to hold a sloth and hang out with a sloth, you can come here to Ocoee Riverside Farm. We're located in Benton, Tennessee, halfway between Chattanooga and Knoxville. Keep watching, you're going to get to see a sloth encounter. So you guys are watching Zoe right now, and we're going to be doing a sloth encounter. People are going to be cuddling with her, but I just thought we'd go ahead and come on in and hang out with the sloth for a second before our guests get here. We're located in Benton, Tennessee, halfway between Chattanooga and Knoxville. If you've ever wanted to hang out with some awesome animals, go ahead and come visit us. It's pretty awesome. How long do sloths live? In the wild, they typically live to 20 to 30 years, but there were two sloths in Germany, Jan and Paula, and they made it to 52 and 54 years old. I'm gonna slide this.
Yes, you're gonna scoot your chair over.
Sorry, I hate your trap.
I know. I was gonna go through those little grates, but I didn't know.
I've got a little friend that's gonna be running around with us here for a minute. So this is Dash. He's 11 months old. When we hold him, we just support him underneath his booty like this, and then you can give him nice slow pets down the
There's
middle
an
of his back.
armadillo out.
Yeah, he ran out when he opened up that door. It's fine. So you just pet him nice and slow down the middle of his back. His legs and his sides are sensitive areas, and so we do just try to go down the middle of his back. So I'm going to let you hold first because you're in the blue chair there. It's a little bit more easy to be in that chair when you're holding him. So he's going to wrap his legs around your torso like this first, and then you can put both hands underneath his booty to support him. And Dash is very ADHD, and so I have to sit up here when I do his encounters, otherwise he's looking around for me, and any movement that he sees back behind him makes him want to look back there at it. He sees Kevin moving around, just wondering who it is. They do have really poor eyesight, and so just by looking at Kevin, he can't really tell who that is. But if you were to start talking, then he would recognize that. So since their eyesight is so poor, their sense of hearing and sense of smell is actually really good. And I promise Baku doesn't bite, he just digs around. He's an insectivore, and so he likes to look for bugs. To my knowledge, he's never found any bugs in anybody's socks, but he still likes to check.
Do they recognize scent?
They do, yeah. So, I don't ever wear any perfume or lotions or anything like that because their sense of smell is so strong. But everybody kind of has their own natural smell. I use the same deodorant and have the same detergent that I use for my clothes. Now, they do explore some with their mouth, so if he starts to look, like he's gonna, it may be that your arm is resting on his arm there a little bit. And since their arms are really sensitive, but he may just be hungry. He's gonna be out here for him. guys from?
Loretta, Lawrence County. It's
Yeah.
about 3.5 hours away.
Where'd you guys hear about us?
Let's see. I can't remember if it was TikTok, Facebook. I can't remember which one it was, but
Yeah.
once I seen it the first time, I went on the website several times.
Yeah.
She is sloth crazy. She's
Yeah.
obsessed with sloths.
Have you ever interacted with any sloths before?
No. This is my first time.
Yeah.
She has salt, pepper shakers, blankets,
Ornaments.
many stuffed animals.
How old is this armadillo?
He's about a year old. He's paying some time, so I can put him up if he's being annoying.
We got them all in the yard, digging holes all in that.
So Baku is a 3-banded Brazilian armadillo.
Ow!
Yeah, he scratches with those claws sometimes. I'll just put it up for now.
No, he's okay. He ain't gonna hurt.
He just gets
He
really
just kinda
distracting.
scared
A lot of movement around back here. But they are very curious animals, and so he likes to see. He's got a really big fear of missing out. So any type of things that are going on back behind him, he likes to take a look at.
So what all does it eat?
So he just now has gotten onto this mixture of sweet potatoes, squash and zucchini, green beans and stuff like that, but he's transitioning over onto more chopped up things like this, but he was just on a mixture of brown rice, shaved up sweet potatoes, and a really high quality dog food that had been soaked in water and then mixed into it. And so, if he does start to go for your arm there, just move it away, that way he doesn't, because they do have teeth in the back that they can, use if they get a hold of enough skin. Most of the time they just explore with the very front there, but we don't want them to get so far back that they catch the bite. I'll give you this if you want to feed him while you're over there. But do just keep in mind that they do have poor eyesight, so he can't tell the difference between a finger and a sweet potato, so.
Can I send a picture of Karen?
Sure. Probably see while he's chewing that he doesn't have any teeth there in the very front, but the first teeth that you get to, he's got those 4 really sharp canines. And then in the back, his molars are actually all pointed, unlike ours, that ours are flat. So they use those teeth to actually grind up the leaves that they're eating instead of like chomping them up like we do with leaves.
So how many times a day?
He's a snacker, so he eats all throughout the day, different times of the day. Maybe when we're in encounters and stuff like that, he likes to get just little dots of food. But he does have a strict schedule for in the morning and afternoon that he gets a certain amount of food.
So does he get held a lot of time?
He does. And it's not all by just encounters. If he were to be fully booked with encounters, he would only have 2 hours a day total. We are guarded at the time that we participate in sloths just because this is an enjoyable thing for them. But too much of any good thing can be bad, and so we don't want to overbook him to the point where he's not looking forward to the next encounter. He's actually dreading it. He's at the point right now where every time he looks forward to that next encounter.
Do they sleep a lot?
They do, and so they need time to be able to do that as well. They sleep about 15 to 16 hours a day on average.
Sounds like you.
They
So
are
he
a
was
lot
in
more
the
active
basket,
than
then is he usually in the basket, or is he like?
when he's down here, he's in the basket. He does have another smaller enclosure that he can climb around in and everything. But our baby animals or ones that are like bottle raised or things like that that need a little bit extra attention will stay at the main house for the first year of their lives. So he's almost a year old. He's almost ready to be moved down here full time. But in the evenings and through the night, he's at the main house. So until he is down here full time, then he will be in the basket. Which is fine by him. He would, if he's not on holding onto a person, he would rather be in his basket covered up so he can take a nap.
Where do they originate from?
Central and South America. Yeah, so places like Honduras, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Brazil, Panama.
Are they abundant in the wild down there?
They are, but a lot of people ask, not really abundant, it's not like they're, they have issues with how many that they have. But a lot of people ask if they're endangered animals, and they're not endangered, but their habitat definitely is. So the rainforest is ever shrinking, and if they don't have a place to live, then they will not be able to exist in the wild, which is why we're breeding, and raising captive sloths, so that we will have still a population of sloths if that were to ever happen.
In the wild, do they sleep in the trees or?
They do, yeah, they hang upside down the whole time.
Really?
Their claws have locking mechanisms in them that make it their relaxed state, whereas to open up that claw and let go, that's their stress state. So if a sloth were to actually pass away holding onto the underside of a branch, they would continue to hang there until something knocked them off that branch.
Can they hear good?
They can, yeah, since their eyesight is so poor, their sense of hearing is actually really heightened. So something as simple as somebody opening up and closing that door really quickly could be enough to startle him where he kind of jumps.
Do they actually have ears where it's just like?
They do, yeah. When I go to transfer him over here in just a minute, if you remind me, I'll show you his ears.
You like my voice?
Your eyes
I'm
are done.
bugged out.
And you can see how tiny those pupils are as well, how pinpoint small they
Yeah.
are. They do have a really narrow field of vision, and so they don't really see something until it's right in front of their face.
And that nose is constantly twitching.
Yeah. Very inquisitive.
She has waited forever to hold one of them.
Yeah. And that's kind of our whole idea behind offering the encounters here with these type of animals, is that we know where they have been bred in an ethical situation, an appropriate situation to be handled like this. Whereas a wild sloth, if you were to go down to like Costa Rica or something that had an encounter down there, almost 100% of those sloths have been taken from the rainforest. They just take them out of the tree, do the encounter with them, and then put them back in the same tree, but they use that same sloth over and over and over again, and they get so run down to the point where they don't have very long life expectancies. They do have a really intricate whole ecosystem that they have on their backs that they rely on not only for camouflage, but to actually digest their food. They have moths that live throughout their fur that feeds on the moss and algae that they have growing on their backs. And that's where they get the bacteria that they use to digest their food. And so if that ecosystem is messed up or disturbed, or those moth population goes down, then that can really have some negative impacts to the sloth. And a lot of people aren't aware of those practices that happen with those sloths. Oftentimes what happens is that natives in the area will kind of get to know the schedule of cruise ships that are going to be coming to board, and after they dock, those people get off of that cruise ship and they're looking around for excursions and things like that. People will be standing out there with a sloth and be like, hey, give me $5 and you can hold this sloth for a minute. But they're not aware of the type of practices that have gone on with that sloth beforehand. Oftentimes what happens is that they'll take them out of the rainforest, dunk them in a bucket of bleach and scrub off all of that moss and algae that they have on their backs. Sometimes if they get one that's more feisty, they'll pull that sloth's teeth and then put them in the roadside petting zoo. And people aren't aware of that, obviously, or they wouldn't be supporting it. So that's kind of our whole idea behind having these encounters here where you can come and hold a sloth in an appropriate situation, where they have been bred for this. A sloth is not naturally going to want to hold on to a person like this. This is not natural behavior for them. A lot of people think of sloths as really gentle, docile, calm animals, and they are as long as they're left alone. But if you were to try to take a wild sloth out of a tree and have an encounter like this that had never been handled before, it would be a completely different situation. It would essentially be the difference between holding a house cat and a feral cat. So you'd probably walk away from that looking quite differently.
2 toes.
Yep, so he is a two-toed sloth. He's got 2 on the front and 3 on the back. The 3-toed sloths are a lot more difficult to keep in captivity because their diets are a lot more sensitive to what they can and can't eat. And they can really only eat the leaves of the Sarcopia trees that only grow in Central and South America. So for that reason, to own a 3-toed sloth, you basically have to own a private jet as well to fly you to and from the rainforest once a week to get you those leaves. But the 2-toed sloths can have their diets vary quite a bit. Obviously, they're not going to have access to sweet potatoes and spinach and zucchini and stuff like that out in the wild. But they can be varied and controlled to where we can keep those in captivity. But just because Dash was born and raised in captivity does not guarantee that he's going to enjoy this type of interaction. He actually went through a whole ambassador program when he was born, that got him to this point. So his mother was actually clicker trained to know that when she heard that clicker sound, the breeder was going to come up and give her a little treat, and then was going to borrow her baby for just like 10 or 15 seconds while still standing right next to mom. So mom's never stressed out because she's got a snack, baby's still right there. And then baby's never stressed out because mom's never stressed out. And it's always a positive interaction that that baby will have with people. And they'll do that, once or twice a day, every day for, the whole time that they're growing. And then by the time that that baby is weaned from the mother, around 5 months old, that baby's used to being held for upwards to an hour a day at a time and is completely comfortable with that. And so they kind of go from mom being their sense of comfort to then humans being their sense of comfort after they're weaned.
So are you pretty much saying
Yeah.
Is
I'm
there-
the sloth keeper, so I do all of the encounters and everything with the sloths. Now, we didn't raise Dash here. He was not bred here. We got him from the facility that had trained their mothers and everything to be that way. And he's basically like the #1 supplier for all of the ambassador sloths in the U.S. So he has a really big program for that. He does have a bigger program for sloths that are just raised to be normal sloths that aren't held, but he does specialize in his ambassador sloths. So he works really hard with those to get them comfortable with, being held by people.
So do they like being by themselves?
Or for the most part, that's what, naturally sloths want to do. They're very solitary animals, especially in the wild. If you see 2 sloths in the same tree, they're definitely not going to be close to each other. They're going to be on opposite sides of that tree. They just want to avoid each other and avoid people. But if they're born and raised in captivity around people their whole lives, that's all they really know. So that's what they're comfortable with.
I wonder what the purpose is of them being so slow. Their metabolism or something?
Yeah, well, they really can only be slow animals because their diets are just the leaves of the Sarcopia trees in the wild, and leaves are really low in calories, and it takes calories in order to create energy. So they don't really have enough energy to be very fast creatures. And so if a sloth is not actively eating or sleeping, they're just hanging there resting and digesting their food. They don't have enough energy reserves just to be climbing around, exploring, moving to another tree. They stay in the same tree that they pick for months or years at a time. Some sloths even spend their whole lives in the same tree.
Wow.
Those Sarcopia trees that grow down there, there's a few different species of them. They're all Sarcopias, but different, subdivisions of those trees. And the leaves all taste a little bit different. And so each sloth will kind of pick their preference. They do have their favorite foods. And so once they figure out which leaves taste best to them, they'll stay in that tree.
What about water?
They don't really drink a whole lot. Yeah, they get all the water content that they need from the leaves that they're eating. And sometimes the water will kind of pull up in little leaves like that in the trees. So they occasionally will lap up some of that, but they don't really need to. Zoe more so just plays in her water dish than she does actually get a drink from it. Come back in the morning and it's all over the floor and everything from where she's been playing.
Is that Zoe?
Yeah. And Zoe came from the same program that Dash did, so she is our other holding sloth. Now Flash, our oldest sloth, he was born and raised in captivity as well, but did not go through that ambassador program. And so while he's been around people his whole life, and he's almost 7 years old, has been interacting with people, he's comfortable with being touched and pet and hand-fed his food. If we were to try to take him down off of the branch and hold him, it would be a very stressful situation for him because he's never had that type of, experience before. And after he spent, 7 years of his life just being in a tree, not ever being picked up by somebody, that would be very stressful. And so If he ever decided to climb onto any of us, that would be completely his decision and not influenced by us at all.
Honestly.
I noticed like when he started to relax, his grip got stronger.
Yeah, and that's because that for them is just their relaxed state. And so a lot of people wonder when they're clamping down like that before I talk about that. Like, is he worried?
Yeah, Mama's
Is he
doing
nervous?
some ways.
It's like clamping down on them. But that's actually just relaxed.
I noticed the more relaxed he got, the harder.
And that's just what's natural for them. And so they're not holding on to a branch. Even Zoe, she likes to hang out in her hammock a lot. She'll still have her claws wrapped around that hammock. And if she's got her claws, sometimes she'll kind of cross her hands like this. She's got her claws completely all the way in. And their grip strength is absolutely amazing because of how it's just opposite for them. Because this is our relaxed state,
Right.
whereas it's opposite. So it doesn't take them any energy whatsoever to be clamping down like that. And some sources actually say that they have enough grip strength to actually break bones. So if they were to grip onto somebody's fingers and really clamp down on that they could do that. And it makes sense because they have the grip strength to actually hold their entire body weight up by one claw as soon as they're born.
Really?
It's a lot more difficult to get a sloth down off of a branch by pulling down on their arm than it is to lift up and get it off that way. They're kind of like a coat hanger. And so for that reason, the hoppy eagle is the #1 successful thing that tries to get a hold of sloths, because when they grab a hold, their talons work similarly to the sloth's claws, where when they clamp down on that, they're not letting go until they want to. And so if they grab a hold of the leg and rip upwards, they're getting that sloth off that branch a lot more easily. A sloth can actually withstand an entire jaguar holding onto their back, dangling down, trying to get them off of that branch. Obviously, they're going to sustain a lot of internal damage from that, or just punctures and things like that. But they do have enough grip strength to hold on through an event like that. It's been about 25 minutes, so we can switch over. You won't have to do anything, you'll just on the phone. I'll have you guys switch out chairs. So he'll wrap his legs around his torso first, and then you can step in with his baby. Just keep in mind that his legs are sensitive. So we do just have the two-toed sloths here, but the three-toed sloths they look a lot different from the two-toed. A lot of times if you just picture a sloth in your head, you're picturing a three-toed sloth, because usually that whole advertising of sloths, they show three-toed sloths where they have that darker band across their eyes, they have a shorter face, and it kind of looks like they're smiling all the time. Those are the three-toed sloths. Sometimes they're referred to as pygmy sloths or dwarf sloths, because they only get to be about 10 pounds. Whereas the two-toed sloths can get to be up to 20 pounds.
Wow.
Get to be a lot bigger.
So how big is Zoe?
Zoe is about 17 pounds right now, which is why she has a bucket underneath her hammock. Because when she goes to the bathroom, they only go once a week. So when they do go, it's about a third of their entire body weight.
Oh,
and
really?
sometimes she has accidents in her hammock. And so when she does, all of that liquid has to go somewhere, and it will go through that hammock and all over the floor. So that's why we have that bucket under her right now.
Bless it. Oh.
Likes to cover her little face.
Did you say you do encounters with her too?
We do, yeah. And even if Zoe were to be fully booked for the entire day, she would only encounter for 2 hours a day total. We always want to keep it enjoyable for her. And even if she were to be fully booked, I could come back in the evening after her last encounter and just be cleaning up her enclosure. And if she's awake and sees me in there and I'm not going to pick her up, she starts climbing through the branches at me and will be reaching out, and she'll be going, meh, meh. They do make little noises like that.
So
when
she
they're
wants you to hold
distressed.
her.
Yeah. It is more stressful for Zoe to be in that hammock while someone is standing in her room than for her to be holding on to that person.
Yeah.
That is her goal, that's where she's most comfortable.
And how old did you say she is?
She's 17 months.
Wow.
She is a spoiled baby.
Yeah.
Oh, I can, yeah.
Is that an animal or somebody?
It's an animal.
What was it?
It's a camel.
Oh.
Sounds like you.
I think that's Humphrey. Factory camel.
Where is the?
I put it in that
No? Try some, well, sweet tater. Oh, it's full Freddy.
And it's pretty cool how their digestive system, now their claws are really sensitive.
Oh,
The
okay.
paw pad that's underneath there that you might have got a feel of is really sensitive because their eyesight is so poor. So when they grab onto something, they may not necessarily know what they're grabbing onto. So it's really important that they have that sensation of the paw pad. And you have to think about, they are prey animals, and so they're on the underside of that branch. And if there's a jaguar or an ocelot or some sort of threat on the top side of that branch, the first thing that they're going to grab a hold of is a leg. And so that's why they're so sensitive on their legs and on their paws, because that's what, you know, even though he has been born and raised in captivity for generations upon generations and with have no clue what to do if he was put out into the rainforest, it's still hardwired into them that is a sensitive area. And the only time that the underbelly of a sloth is being touched is if they're being attacked or if they have a baby on them. And so we don't want to mimic either one of those if we're not, you know, if that's not actually something that's happening for them. But there is a reason for why the sloths only go to the bathroom once a week. Their digestive system is extremely slow. It takes about 30 days to digest one piece of food all the way through their system. And so they really only have to go once a week, which is beneficial for them because when they come down to use the bathroom, because they do have to go to the base of the tree to go to the bathroom, that's when they're most exposed to things that could potentially grab them. So they only go down once about every 7 to 10 days. And when they come down, they always use the same tree. They'll go down the same side of the tree and they'll use the same pile that they always go to. And that's because of the relationship they have with moths that live throughout their fur. So it's a symbiotic relationship, meaning that both parties benefit. The sloths need those moths and the moths need the sloths in order to survive. And so the sloths, or the moths need the sloths to go to that same spot every time to go to the bathroom so that they can come down and lay their eggs in the waste product of the sloth.
Oh,
And
wow.
then those eggs will develop into larvae and then adult moths. And those moths can't fly around like other normal moths in the environment. The only place they can live is on the back of the sloth. And so they require that sloth to go to the same pile every time so they can have direct contact and climb back up onto the sloth. So it wouldn't work if the sloth went to the bathroom here and then used a different tree or just a different side of the tree. It wouldn't work out. So they have to go to the same spot every single time.
But like for them in captivity, like they don't have to go to the same spot every time?
They don't have to, but it's something that is usually still very ingrained into them. Flash, our adult sloth, we have 2 trees in his enclosure that go all the way to the base of the floor, but he only uses one tree and he always uses the same side of that tree every single time because it is ingrained into them that that's what they're supposed to do. Now, that's for a sloth that has been, not gone through an ambassador program. Now, Dash and Zoe have both been spoiled throughout their lives and they've been held and hand-fed and, everything. And so they were raised very differently than Flash was. And so for that reason, they spend a lot more time in a hammock rather than climbing through the trees. So she stays in that hammock a lot, and a lot of times she'll just stay in the hammock and then go to the bathroom in the hammock. So sometimes we do have to clean them off because they'll roll around in it. But that's the only type of hygienic maintenance that we have to do for them, yeah. They don't have any natural scent glands, musk glands, odor glands, or anything like that. So they kind of just keep up their own hygiene. The only time we have to bathe them is if they roll around.
Right. Wow.
those moths are really important for the sloth because those moths produce a specific type of bacteria in their waste. And when the sloth licks that up off of their backs, that's where the sloth gets that bacteria in order to digest its food. And it is really important relationship because even if they establish that bacteria, they still need those moths on them so that they can always keep that bacteria up because that bacteria is really sensitive to temperature changes. And in the wild, the temperature is always changing. It's the rainforest. Most of the time it's hot and humid, but depending on the season or the time of day, it can drop. And if it does, that bacteria can be wiped out in their gut. It's not an issue for a wild sloth though, because they have those moths on them and they'll just lick up more of that bacteria. However, for a captive sloth, after they've established that bacteria from their mother, the bacteria that she has in her gut from her mom and her mom's mom, all the way dating back to the rainforest, is already established in her gut. And so when the baby goes to lick the mother around the corners of her mouth, they get just a little bit of that bacteria themselves. And they'll colonate and germinate and make their own bacteria colony. But they don't need those moths on them anymore because as long as we keep them in a stable environment where the temperature is always the same and never drops to a temperature that bacteria can't live in, then they're good to go. But if we were to do something stupid like leave a door crack to their outdoor enclosure overnight in the winter or something like that, and come back in the morning and the temperature is way below 73 degrees, that would be absolutely bad news for that sloth because all of that bacteria would be wiped out in their gut. They would not have a way to digest their food, and that sloth would pass away in about 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So for that reason, that's why we always
So there's
tell
no way to
people that
reintroduce the
there's no synthetic type form of a bacteria that we can give them that replicates that same type of bacteria that they get originally from those moths. The only way
No
that they get that.
probiotics or anything, huh?
Nope. So there's efforts that you can do to try to reestablish some of that bacteria if they still have a little bit of it. But if all of that has been wiped out overnight because the door's been cracked or something has happened where the temperature drops, it is really detrimental for that sloth, and there's not a whole lot you can really do about it unless you were to ship that sloth off to the rainforest to have some of those moths put on it or something, which is not something that people typically do. And so unfortunately, there's no type of license that you have to own a sloth, which makes it easy for people to go and buy sloths online. But there's no reputable breeder of sloths in the United States that's going to sell one of their babies to just a member of the general public that doesn't really have any prior knowledge of owning or handling sloths.
Right.
So the majority of those sloths come through the illegal animal trade and are taken from the rainforest. And just the
So
stress
does it live very
alone,
long once somebody
they
gets
don't.
them?
Just the stress alone of being taken from the rainforest, having all that bacteria wiped off of them, is enough to, the sloth will pass away from starvation within about 2 weeks, just not able to digest any of their food, yeah. They could still be eating, they could have a full belly of food, but they won't be able to digest it because they don't have that bacteria. Why are you looking at me? It's an extremely sensitive system, and you wouldn't think that the temperature of their environment would have any correlation to how they digest their food,
Right.
but it does, and so it doesn't turn out very well for the sloths that are taken from the wild and brought into captivity like that for someone that doesn't have any prior knowledge of the
Right.
sloths. Now, obviously, the breeding program that we got Dash from had to start from somewhere, and those are started from wild sloths. About 30 years ago now, the breeder of Dash, he's actually a veterinarian. He was working down in Costa Rica trying to rehabilitate some sloths that had been injured. A lot of times what happens from them is that they'll be trying to cross a roadway using a
Right.
telephone pole. They'll be going across that wire and it's fine as long as they're on one, but as soon as they reach over and complete that circuit and touch another one, then they're electrocuted, and they can sustain really detrimental, injuries from that. So they were trying to rehabilitate some of those sloths, but the ones that could not be rehabilitated and were injured enough where they would not be able to live a natural life back, if they were put back into the wild, is what started his breeding program.
Okay.
And that was over 30 years ago, and so since then, he has had generations upon generations upon generations upon generations of sloths born and raised in captivity to get what we have now. So these guys are further removed from the rainforest genetically than we are from the pilgrims first coming over.
Wow.
Obviously, they're still sloths, and they still live, have the same weird quirks that all sloths do and everything, just like people do, but we don't have to hunt for our food like we used to back then and stuff
Right.
like that.
No, I think Dash and Zoe had it made.
Yeah. They definitely do. And Flash too. I always tell people that Flash made his schedule. In the morning, he has an encounter from like 10:30 to 11:30. If he's fully booked, he can have a 30-minute encounter, and then right after another 30-minute encounter. And he made that encounter himself. So when we first got him about 3 years ago, he was never interacted with like how we do now, how we touch him, we feed him, and things like that. He was not comfortable with anything like that. So it took the owner, John, about the first 2 years that we had him, really just working with him, getting him comfortable with us just being in there, before he would even come down and consider eating out of our hand like that. But now his encounters are where he'll come out and he'll hang on this branch that's in the kitchen here. And you can pet him nice and slow down his back. You can feed him veggies. And he's came a long way from what he used to be, and that didn't just happen overnight. They are very routine animals, and so once they establish a routine, they like to stick to it. So it started to be his, now move your arm away if he starts to open his mouth. Started to be his routine that when we come in here around 9:30 every morning and start chopping up his veggies, that he knew after that he was gonna be getting his breakfast, and so, we would be going back in there around 10 o'clock to give him his breakfast, so he would be on his way down, already waiting for us to get his breakfast in the morning. So he would start to, he would hook onto the other side of the door frame right there and start kind of smearing his nose around in the corner of the door, trying to get us to open it up so we'd come in there and give him his breakfast. And so it just made sense to go ahead and make this branch out here where he actually will hook onto the door frame on both sides and then bring himself out here onto this branch himself. So he established that routine first thing in the morning himself, and that's what time we started booking his encounters, because we knew he was gonna be down and ready for his breakfast.
So they're pretty intelligent then.
Yeah, they are. And they learn things too, which is why I always tell people, if he starts to open his mouth and look like he's wanting to nibble on your arm, don't let him, because that just teaches him that he can do that. You always wanna just move your arm away, and a lot of times, they are curious animals, and so sometimes they're just kinda testing you out and seeing what you are, if you've got food for them, or, things like that. Not trying to be mean or anything, but we don't wanna just leave our arm there and let him, keep gnawing till he gets back to where his teeth are at. Now he's pretty dark compared to what Zoe is. Zoe looks dark right now because you can only really see her legs, but on her back she's a lot lighter, really cream color. And as they get older, they start to lighten up like that. And when they're first born, their hair is really short, dark, black like that. And as they get older, their hair will start to grow out and grow into their adult hair. They don't shed out their baby hair or shed out a summer coat or anything like that. They're kind of hypoallergenic animals because they don't have any natural dander or shed that comes off of them while you're petting them. So a lot of people that are allergic to a lot of different animals aren't really allergic to sloths.
What is their life expectancy?
In the wild, we're not exactly sure. There's not been a scientist that has been able to track one singular sloth from birth until geriatrics. They're pretty difficult to track in the wild because their necks are the same size as their heads, so they can get a tracking collar off pretty easily if they work at it enough. In captivity, the oldest sloth that we know of that was born and raised in captivity lived to be 54 years old. So they can live long lives. Now that's not typical. If the diet, everything is kept just right, they can obviously. But typically, captive sloths live to be about 30 years old.
Wow.
So we expect it to be a little bit less than that in the wild, just due to natural things like predation and stuff like that. What are you looking at, buddy? I think he's got kind of a little internal clock system because he knows his encounters are 20 minutes long, and right around that 20-minute mark, he starts really pushing away from the person and looking at them like it's time.
Who's next?
Yeah, and it's not because he's not liking the person that he's on. He even does that with me. If I have been holding him for about 20 minutes and there's somebody else that walks in that he can see, he really starts reaching for them just because, like I said, they're routine animals and they get that routine established and they like to stick to it. There is about 20 minutes left. Did you want to
I'm gonna
hold?
let her have mine.
Okay. Did you want to hold for a little bit longer, or do you want to switch over now?
No, if you want to,
No, that's fine.
are you sure you don't want to?
Yeah, fine.
So this will be the last transfer that we do, so whoever is willing to hold will hold for the rest of the time. The transferring part is the most stressful part of the encounter for them, just because they're in a second where they're kind of mid-air going on to the next person. but after they're on somebody, that's where
Yeah.
they're most comfortable.
He looks pretty comfortable like
He
that.
is, he's clamping down real hard on my arm right now.
I see that.
When we first get them, they're so small that they can't even wrap their legs around our torso like that, so we have to carry them around on our arms
Really?
like this, yeah. But,
She's not going
So why was the armadillo in here?
they're just roommates, that's just where his enclosure is at, is there in the bottom of the,
Still in there?
yeah, he may be sleeping over in the corner now, he likes to cover himself up with those shavings and everything. If you guys wouldn't care to have a seat though, just he sees
okay.
people standing up and moving around, he does push away a lot more. Just to look around at people. And that's why even when I'm sitting here, I'm very expressive with my hands, and so I try to not move my hands around as much, because if he catches an eye of that, he'll start looking, trying to figure out what's going on.
No.
He's got really bad FOMO. I think sometimes he forgets how long his tongue is, because he leaves just a little bit poking out, just right
Aw.
there. I forgot to show you his ears again, but if you remember when I go to transfer him again, once I get him from you, I'll show you where his ears are at. They do have fully formed little ears like ours. They're not just holes in the sides of their head like chickens. It's pretty cool. Do you guys have any other encounters today, or is it just the sloths?
Just a minute. I'm just going from work over here. Just gonna be a sloth anymore.
It's pretty nice on the slower days because, like I said, they're routine animals and they like to stick to that. And so this morning, Zoe and Flash didn't have anything booked, where usually they have a fully booked morning from like 10 to 11:30 at the latest. And they didn't have anything. So we still come in here and we still interact with them and we still feed them the same breakfast and we hold them for the same amount of time so that they get to stick to their schedule like
Right.
that. So.
It's gotta be a terrible job.
That's why I think I'm just gonna come to work.
So where does the other sloth stay?
Flash stays right behind there in that enclosure, on that door. And his is actually a 20-foot enclosure. The top, like 8 feet of his enclosure is plexiglass on one side. And if you book to stay in the camel condo, which is right above down here, you can actually have him as a roommate. So he stays up there in a little hammock most of the time when he's napping. So you can walk by and see him sleeping up there, and it's really cool. Now it does sleep about 6 to 10 people up there. There's 3 master bedrooms and 2 kids' rooms that are connected. The kids' rooms, you have to go into them like the Chronicles of Narnia, where you open up that wardrobe and move
wow.
and you go in like that. So
How
it's
cool would
really
that be?
cool. And then the 2 kids' rooms are connected in the back by a long little hallway surrounded with fish tanks in it. So it's really cool.
So you don't mind other people being in the room? Flash?
Oh, Flash, well, it's not in the same room. There
You
is
just-
plexiglass
okay, you can
dividing
just
him.
see.
But yeah, it's just something that he's used to. That's where he's been his whole life that he's been here.
Okay.
So for the past almost over 3 years now, he's been up there. So he's known that that's just natural for him, where he sees people going by all the time. Now we do have signs and stuff up there that says that if you peck on the glass and stuff like that, it's the last time you're gonna see Flash, because he will be at the very bottom. He won't go back up until they leave. Yeah. And that'll be his decision. It's not like we take him down. You start pecking on that glass and pester him and stuff, he's got a whole nother, 13 foot of enclosure that he can just come down and he won't be back up there.
It's pretty smart.
Yeah. They really like their napping time, so if they get disturbed up there, he'll just find somewhere else to nap. But it's really cool if you're, quiet and there's not a whole lot of kids and he's being more interactive. You go over there and you watch him and you take your head and you go back and forth like this. He'll take his head and do the same thing and he'll go back and forth and follow you. It's really cool. It's similar how he'll track me. If I get up and walk over there, he's gonna watch me the whole time. They're very inquisitive animals. And you'd think that looking at him, especially Dash, where he's so much smaller, that they're really fragile animals. But on the inside, believe it or not, they're kind of built like trucks. They've got a total of 46 ribs, so that's double what we have. It's 2 sets of 23 that can actually kind of fold in on themselves. And they on average fall out of the trees about once a week. And those sarcopia trees go up 100 plus feet up in the air, but they're designed to withstand a fall from up to 100 feet in the air. And so it does happen about once a week, whether that's due to a miscalculated step where they're startled by something, they're trying to get away, and they end up reaching for what they think is the next branch, and it's actually their own leg. That happens occasionally. If they're startled, they're just trying to get away, not worried about what they're grabbing onto.
So if you see one fall out of a tree, don't panic.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Okay. Yeah, they do kind of go spread eagle, all 4 limbs go out and they fall like a pancake. And so when they hit the ground, their bones are extremely flexible, so they just kind of flex under their body weight and go back. They've also got a whole lot of connective tissue in their abdomen that's holding all of their internal organs where they're supposed to be. And that's beneficial for when they're, in the tree upside down. If they let go of their front feet and they extend down just by holding onto their back feet to reach for a branch that's lower than them, all of their organs stay in the right place. And if they fall out of the tree, their organs don't really jostle around like ours do, so they don't really sustain any type of internal damage from that. So it's kind of best case scenario for a sloth if they were to just be hanging out on a branch minding their own business and there be a jaguar come out on that branch after them. Their goal is to get to the very end of that branch, and if that jaguar is pressing the matter enough to go out there on the end of the branch as well, it's best case scenario for the sloth that that branch breaks and they both end up falling, because the sloth's probably going to survive that fall. The jaguar is probably not going to be as lucky because he's probably going to try to land on all 4 feet. And trying to land on all 4 feet from a height of 100 feet up in the air is probably going to break something, if not all 4.
I bet it'd take you a week to get back up to the top.
Yeah.
Climb up there.
Yeah. But they do make that long trek about once a week to come down to the bathroom anyway, so they can expend a little bit of energy to get to and from where they need to go. And they're not quite as slow as a lot of people think. I think Zootopia portrays it as being like painfully slow to watch a sloth, but they can have short bursts of energy where they move quicker. And you can see, I mean, he's inquisitive, he's looking around and stuff like that, so it's not like extreme slow motion. They're just generally slow animals and lazy animals. I wouldn't really say lazy, I'd just say, I don't know what the word would be.
They're just relaxed.
Yeah, they're
They're just-
relaxed, yeah. They just
No
kind
hurry.
of, they don't have enough energy to be able to be moving around and exploring and things like that. No, but I'm sorry, I moved my leg.
They're the stoners of the forest. Where'd that voice come from?
So I did mention that the sloths do have really poor eyesight, but I don't think I mentioned the condition that they actually have. Their eyes actually have a condition that's called rod monochromacy, and that means that they only have rod cells in their eyes and no cone cells. So we have cone cells in the back of our eyes that allow us to see color, but since they lack those cells, they are colorblind. The rod cells that they have picks up motion. So something as simple as me moving my hand like this in front of myself just looks normal, but for them is a lot more heightened and can be a lot more startling, which is why something that's moving at or by a sloth in the wild is startling enough for them to just try to scurry to the end of that branch. They just want to get away from it and hope that it leaves them alone. What are you looking at, buddy? Some
Nose is
scientists-
so smooth.
Yeah. Some scientists actually speculate that when they're looking upside down like that, that's their way of seeing right side up. And it makes sense because everything else that's inside of a sloth is geared to be an upside down animal. Everything from their digestive tract, their circulatory system, the connective tissue that's holding everything where it's supposed to be, and the locking mechanisms they have in their claws. So it makes sense their eyesight would be as well.
It's very interesting.
You get an itch?
Scratching it out. Be careful with that.
Zoe was scratching, I don't know if something flew up her nose or what, but she literally with those 2 claws had both of them in one nostril just
Oh
digging the other
gosh.
day, and I was like, that cannot be comfortable. Ugh. And she was sitting on my lap too, and so I was just watching her like claw her nostril to death.
Do they ever interact together?
Not really. Now in the future, our plans are to put them both together, so they're gonna have to be slowly acclimated. It's not gonna be something that we just put them in there and hope they do well. It's gonna be a very slow process. They have had short interactions where they've been like, Zoe's been held in that chair and then Dash has been beside her and they've seen each other. But they are very solitary animals, and so that's really the closest interaction that they should have if they were left by themselves. They're not gonna be, cuddle up next to each other, or, anything like that. And they're not confrontational animals either. The males don't fight for mates like a lot of other mammals do. The female, when she goes into heat, she lets out a really loud screech noise periodically that alerts all of the males in the area that she is ready to be bred. So they'll all slowly make their way over there. And the first one that makes it there will be the lucky winner. Everybody else that shows up late will just turn around and go back. They don't fight. So.
That's so funny.
And it is just a very slow process. A lot of people are curious of how they mate. And, if you think about rabbits that go extremely fast, it is a very slow process, but it just happens pretty similar to any other type of animal. But then after they're finished, the male doesn't stick around for very long. He'll go back to the same tree that he came from, and then he'll be there for the rest of his life, or until he figures out he wants to go
So
to a
you don't want
different
to be
tree.
a dad.
No.
It's just a daughter.
No. The daddy sloths don't really ever see their babies unless they were to just happen to cross them in the rainforest. And the baby sloths and mothers don't really have the same type of bond as a lot of other animals do. Other animals like horses and things, even after that baby's weaned, that baby will stay with that mom for years afterwards because they've had that bond. Sloths don't have the same thing. Obviously they have a bond at the beginning because that sloth has just spent 11 months of her life trying to cook that thing in her belly. So they do want them to have the best chance that they can. So if they give birth and that baby falls to the floor, she will go down to go get it. But that's about the only thing that she'll do. And after the baby is weaned, around 5 months old, then that baby will just completely be separated from the mother. He's just looking to transfer over, so he's thinking that you're going to be trying to pick him up.
I gave my time up. It means so much to her.
That position that, when he sees an arm like that, that's what he's thinking that he's going to be transferring on to.
Thank you for watching. I didn't know what you
I ain't giving up. Thank God I can't go nowhere.
Definitely a weird looking creature.
I don't even know what started my obsession with them,
Yeah.
but it's just.
I'd love to know what's going on in their mind.
I would too, because some of the behaviors, like it's kind of predictable, like when it's getting to be around time to change out, he starts leaning like that because he's ready for somebody to come over to transfer onto.
Like I'm fixing to grab.
But other times, like Zoe especially, she'll be just cuddled in around somebody's, up around somebody's chest, around their shoulders. She'll be just completely snuggled in, eyes closed, everything. And then literally nothing different happens, and she all of a sudden is awake and like exploring and reaching and grabbing. It's like, you were just asleep 2 seconds ago. So it's kind of random for her sometimes. And sloths are not like dogs. I think a lot of people can relate to dogs because a lot of people have dogs, and they can kind of pick up on different cues and body language, the way they put their ears or how they look at you, or certain noises that they can make. But not a whole lot of people have been around sloths a whole lot, and so their body language is a little bit different to understand.
So we look at you and say, "What's he doing?"
And since I'm with them all day, every
Yes.
day, it is my job to kind of be specialists on them and to understand what body language is meaning what. Sometimes with Zoe, if somebody's petting her in an uncomfortable spot where she's being kind of ticklish, she'll reach back kind of quick and start like grabbing at them like that. And a lot of people think that she's just scratching, but she's actually scratching towards them, trying to get them to stop. And so it's just little things like that, and how when, you know, when he's pushing back and reaching and stuff like that, he's thinking that he's gonna be transferred onto, so that's something that I have to voice because he doesn't have a voice.
Right.
So that's kind of our jobs with the animals that we work with. We always tell people that obviously human safety is our number one concern. If there was an animal that we were interacting with that was completely unprovoked and tried to bite somebody, the animal probably wouldn't stay for very much longer. But animal comfort is our number two.
Oh,
So
yeah.
they can't advocate for themselves, they can only display body language and signs like that. Not a whole lot of people always pick up on that, so it is our job to always be able to voice what we are understanding from them to the people that are spending time with them.
Well, so I'm a nurse, so I mean, basically when I have a patient, I watch for cues. But there's so many people that don't.
Yeah.
They don't have, they're just
Yeah.
clueless as to what someone might want or need. I can imagine they would be that way, but
Yeah.
just, I'm that way with my animals too.
Yeah.
But they're very helpful.
So are you guys heading back right after this, or doing anything else fun down here?
Yes,
It's
we eat.
whatever they wanna do, yeah, we're gonna eat. Whatever they want to.
Not really a whole lot to do in Benton, but, other than like rafting or tubing down the Ocoee.
Take your necklace off.
You watch that more.
Oh gosh.
Get restless.
He knows that an hour is his limit, the hour that you guys have booked him for is the longest that he encounters for. And so he's, you know, towards the end of that, he knows that it's
Yeah.
time for his nap. And then he won't encounter for, 3 hours, we'll start back up around 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't know that he even has any more encounters for this afternoon.
Chill the rest of the day.
So everybody just sleep.
And I'll get him out occasionally around 4 o'clock, I'll get him back out again just to feed him, see if he wants anything else to eat. Because he does snack more throughout the day than the other sloths do. Our time is right at about up, so I'll go ahead and take him from you and I'll show you his little ears too. Oh, boy.
Thank goodness. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. They are like our ears.
Just hidden.
Hanging on.
Yeah. He's used to this position, especially for transferring and stuff like that. But when he gets to be Zoe's weight and it's like 15 pounds, I'm not sure if I'm gonna still be able to just pick him up by one arm. I'll have to put some type of a arm sleeve or something on. Because he does grip hard pretty sometimes when he's grabbing a hold of something.